Welcome, America, to my podcast. My name's Max Drew, and I'm a CPA, a financial advisor, and I'm also licensed for insurance products in various states. This program is not meant to be fake financial advice to any particular person, but this is rather just an explanation of a system that I use. So please don't take this as specific personal financial advice, but you can learn to think in a way that I have started to think about the game of life and finance. And I love to use as a metaphor for the game chess. And I'll tell you what I'm thinking right now. I'm going to introduce a few concepts to you. And this is called the beta video because I do expect there'll probably be some changes and redefinition to this game as we move forward, as we do with newer ideas. But in the game of chess, we're going to talk about some of the first things that you need to know. This video will be particularly appealing to people who are already familiar with chess. So if you don't latch onto it yourself because you're not familiar with the game of chess, don't feel bad. I'm assuming that this is going to be for a particular audience that kind of enjoys thinking about personal finance and also enjoys chess. Today, we're going to talk about some key pieces for some things in your life and things that you might own in life. One of the first things we're going to talk about is the king. The king is a very important piece in the game of chess. And in your life, there's a very important piece in your own life, which is your own physical well-being and the well-being of your family. So when we're talking about the king in the game of life, as far as it relates to personal finance, we're talking about the well-being of you and your immediate family. So we need to make sure that we don't lose this piece, because if we lose this piece, there's not much more of the game to play after that. The next piece we're going to talk about, which I'm calling the queen. Now, keep in mind, this game is developed for people who are hopefully not at the end of their life, but perhaps somewhere in the middle or at the beginning of their life. We're going to talk about an important piece that's going to be a powerful piece. It should be a powerful piece in your life that can help you out quite a bit, which is your queen. Your queen's going to represent your career, your profession, and your earned income potential. The money you can make by doing a profession, doing services, producing things that people pay you for example. I'm going to typically say in most people's life, we can say that this is an indispensable piece. And if we lose this piece, it's going to make the rest of the game much more difficult to navigate. So I will say that the queen is another very important piece to go along with the king, which is the well-being of your family. This is your career development and your ability to move throughout making money and earning money throughout your life. There's another piece that I think is going to be kind of important. So far, we know we've only got one of each of those pieces on the board, one king and one queen. Another piece that's going to be very important. At some point in your life, you're going to want to make sure that you get this castle under control. Castle is your living situation, and castle could represent your home, or if you're renting, it could represent your rental situation. So just remember that castle is a very important piece in the game of chess. And as we get more developed, more along the way, most people will want to own their castle or want to own their home. But oftentimes in the beginning, we end up living in someone else's castle, maybe our parents or our families, and then we rent and eventually own our own. So we'll talk about that. Maybe you get a little bit farther along in life. Maybe you'll have another castle, which could be a rental property that you rent out for additional income, passive income, or a second property just because you can afford it, a vacation home. Wouldn't that be nice? Another piece that is quite interesting, which typically takes initiative and starts moving first, and that's the knight. Now, the knight, I believe, represents your own physical vitality. How well you keep your own physical health, how healthy you are in your own body. As we know, if your own body's not healthy enough to attend class, to go into work, to do things like that, it can make it very difficult to get around. So we do have two knights, but we can say that one knight on the chessboard that you own is going to represent your physical vitality, and the other knight's going to represent your emotional vitality. So remember, we need our physical body to be healthy and strong. Hopefully our emotions are also healthy and strong, because we need both of those to be able to get out of bed in the morning and start approaching our daily life. If either one of those are too screwed up, we're not going to be able to make our opening move on the chessboard and protect the rest of our pieces and go out there and attack life and get what we need out of it. Another important piece, which is, they're the kind of the counselors to the king and the queen. This one's going to be your education. Now, it could be a formal education, or it could be an education that you've gotten into school life. And this education is going to be what you use to be able to navigate the world, whether that's using computers, whether that's learning a trade or craft, whether that's education about how you approach life, things you learn about diet and exercise, anything you use to keep your mind healthy and to function in the world. A lot of times our first education comes from our family and parents. Later on, it comes from school, and then eventually from our peers, our professors, people that we work with, etc. Now, the next thing that I think is also equally important to intellect, is also a key piece that's right next to the king and queen, is our moral disposition. We might consider morals and ethics to be an indispensable and powerful part of the way we live our own life. Just like you need your mind to be healthy, you want the decisions that you make about your life and that you use your mind to make, and the decisions you want them to be ethical, moral, and helpful to other people. Now, this is not saying that everybody's going to use these pieces that exact way, but this is just my take on trying to be kind of a positive person and how I believe that other people might also view these types of things. So remember, one bishop is for your education, your professional mind, and the education that we do to do real physical things in the world and academic things in the world. This one is how we navigate our moral decision making, our ethical decision making. And sometimes this could have to do with our religious groups. It could have to do with our moral inspirations, our storytelling, things like that attract us to be the hero in our own story. Those types of inspirations that we'll find there. Another thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the pawns. Now, in the pawns, there are 8 of them on the chessboard, and these are oftentimes the things that go out and start experiencing the world and the rest of the chessboard before the other pieces get out there. We could think of the pawn as those essential things that we got to do in life, and you can kind of interchange how you think about these. Now, if they're all 8 essential and you lose one, that might mean as you lose part of them, maybe it puts more stress on the other pawns. So just remember, if you lose a pawn, you can say, well, maybe I haven't totally lost that ability or that duty. Maybe it's going to put extra stress on the remaining pawns. One pawn could represent the need for food and drink. Another pawn could represent exercise in our life. Another pawn could represent relationships. Another pawn could represent the need to attend social functions. Another pawn could be schooling in our life. Another pawn could be work. And another pawn could be love, if we could put love into a category. Another pawn could be family. So I believe that might be about 8. We'll kind of figure it out in the editing of this video. And then remember, this is our beta version, and life with chess as a metaphor. Chess is a metaphor for personal financial management. So thanks for joining me and letting me introduce this system, which I look forward to defining with some of the help and feedback of my audience, and redefining into different versions, perhaps 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, as we move forward in our journey, discussing things together, improving upon this metaphor with chess as a metaphor for personal finance. So thanks a lot for joining me today, guys. Looking forward to getting to know you better and discussing more on this topic and different strategies we can use to win at the game of personal finance and stay healthy along the way. Take care. Mike Strew, CPA. Looking forward to getting to know you better in the next episode.